The glimmer spires of Aurelia Prime stretched toward the three moons, their bioluminescent surfaces pulsing in harmony with the collective consciousness of the city. Commander Salis stood on her observation deck, her silhouette sharp against the backdrop of the capital world's perpetual twilight. Below her, the biomechanical streets flowed like liquid mercury, carrying citizens bred for perfect discipline, their genetic makeup refined over 10,000 years, to eliminate uncertainty, weakness, and most importantly, fear. "The Council summons you, Commander," came the telepathic message from her adjutant. Salis did not turn. Instead, she extended her hand backward, feeling the warm scales of Orion as her star beast padded silently to her side. The creature's 6 eyes, each a different shade of amber, blinked in sequence, a neural synchronization ritual that deepened their empathic bond. "They've found another world for us," she said, more to herself than to Orion. The star beast's ribcage expanded, its bioluminescent organs pulsing in anticipation. Salis smiled. After 300 years of service to the Conquest Council, she and Orion had subjugated 47 star systems together. Not once had they encountered meaningful resistance. No force in the universe could unnerve an Aurelian. The Conquest Chamber hummed with psychic energy, its vast circular space dominated by the galactic tapestry, a living map of every star system under Aurelian control. The 9 members of the Council sat elevated on biomechanical thrones, their bodies enhanced with the finest augmentations the Empire could provide. High Counselor Vothus, his face a mask of perfect symmetry that betrayed no emotion, gestured for Salis to approach the center of the chamber. "Commander Salis." Vothus's voice resonated through both air and mind. "The psychic vanguard requires your expertise once more." A section of the galactic tapestry expanded, revealing a trinary star system at the edge of charted space. Triad Beta, 3 sun-like stars orbiting each other in perfect synchronicity, with 7 planets circling their collective gravitational center. "Our long-range scouts have detected primitive settlements on the 3rd planet," explained Counselor Marathos, her fingers manipulating the display to show a blue-green world. "Terran colonists, it seems. Escaped from our previous conquests in the Arcturus sector." Salis studied the world. Mostly oceans with scattered continents covered in dense vegetation. Nothing remarkable. "Humans," she remarked, her voice carrying the mild disinterest one might reserve for cataloging insects. "We've encountered their kind before. Standard subjugation protocols should suffice." High Counselor Vothus leaned forward. "There have been anomalies in the preliminary reports. Minor skirmishes on the periphery of the system suggest unusual resistance tactics." Salis raised an eyebrow. "Unusual in what way?" "Unpredictable," said Vothus, the word carrying a hint of distaste, as if describing a food that had spoiled. "The scout vessels report behavior patterns that defy rational analysis." A ripple of discomfort passed through the council chamber, subtle but detectable to one, as attuned to psychic currents as Salis. Beside her, Orion's scales shifted color slightly, reflecting her own curiosity. "Then I shall bring predictability to them," Salis declared, placing her fist over her heart in the traditional Aurelian salute. "The psychic vanguard stands ready." "You will lead a preliminary force," Vothus instructed. 3 battlecruisers, 200 elite vanguard soldiers, and a full complement of psychic amplifiers. The objective is swift subjugation. These humans must be integrated into the harmony before their unpredictability spreads. As Salis departed the chamber, Orion pressed against her leg, a questioning sensation flowing through their bond. "No," she assured the star beast, stroking the ridge above its primary eyes. "There is nothing to concern us. Humans are physically frail, technologically inferior, and psychically undeveloped. This mission will be completed within a standard lunar cycle." The star beast emitted a low, thrumming sound, but remained unconvinced. Salis dismissed the creature's unease. After all, nothing in the universe had ever given them cause for fear. The journey to Triad Beta took 17 days in hyperspace. Salis spent the time reviewing all known data on human biology, psychology, and warfare. Their history was chaotic, endless conflicts between their own factions, a bewildering array of contradictory beliefs and technology that developed in bizarre, inefficient patterns. "They waste energy on artistic expression," she remarked to her second-in-command, Lieutenant Karras, as they reviewed cultural briefings. "Imagine devoting resources to creating objects with no practical function." Karras, younger and less experienced, tilted her head. "Perhaps it serves some evolutionary purpose we don't yet understand." "Doubtful. Their emotional volatility is precisely why they've never unified. It's why they'll fall quickly." Salis closed the holographic display. "Prepare the vanguard for planetfall. I want full psychic shields and standard telepathic arrays." They emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation, the three Aurelian cruisers, sleek biomechanical vessels that resembled vast manta rays, taking up equidistant positions around Earth Prime, as the humans had named their colony world. "No orbital defenses detected," reported the sensor officer. "Primitive communications satellites only. Ground scans show scattered settlements, largest concentration in the northern continent's coastal region." "Curious," mused Salis. "They've chosen to disperse rather than consolidate. Inefficient for defense. Or perhaps," suggested Karras, "designed to make conquest more difficult." Salis considered this. "A worthy hypothesis. We'll send an advanced scout unit to the largest settlement first. Standard protocol psychic dampeners active, but weapons powered down. Let's observe their reaction." The dropship descended through wisps of cloud, its adaptive camouflage, rendering it nearly invisible against the brilliant blue sky. Salis watched the feed from the command deck, Orion pressed against her side, both of them studying the alien landscape below. Earth Prime was chaotic. Unlike the carefully ordered ecology of Aurelian worlds, this planet seemed to revel in disorder. Dense jungles gave way to open grasslands, without logical transition. Weather patterns shifted erratically, sunshine yielding to rain and back again within minutes. And the settlements themselves followed no discernible plan, buildings of various materials and designs, clustered together like growths on a fungal colony. "Fascinatingly inefficient," she commented. The advanced scout team, 5 elite vanguard soldiers, led by Commander Thalo, landed 3 kilometers from the settlement, designated Alpha 1. Bodycams transmitted real-time footage back to the orbiting cruiser. Proceeding on foot toward settlement perimeter. Thalo reported, his voice steady in Salis's ear. "Local vegetation is dense. Visibility limited to 50 meters. The jungle closed around the Aurelian scouts, massive trees draped with vines creating a green labyrinth. Water dripped from broad leaves, and unseen creatures called to one another with strange, haunting cries." "Life signs detected ahead," Thalo whispered. "A group of—" The transmission exploded with noise. Salis jerked upright as the bodycam feeds became a chaotic blur of motion. Shouts, distinctly human, filled the audio channels. The sound of primitive projectile weapons discharging. A blur of nets, harpoons, and what appeared to be crude explosive devices. "Status," demanded Salis, but no coherent response came. Only the neural implants of the scout team continued transmitting data, and what they showed caused every Aurelian on the command deck to freeze in shock. Fear. Pure, unfiltered fear flooded from the scouts' implants, along with other emotions no Aurelian had felt in millennia. Wild exhilaration, primal defiance, the thrill of combat. The readings spiked so violently that several monitoring stations overloaded their crystalline displays, shattering. "Impossible," whispered Karras, staring at the readings. "No species has ever produced such neural responses in Aurelian soldiers." Salis's hands clenched the command rail. After several minutes, the chaotic feed stabilized enough to reveal a grim scene. 4 of the 5 scouts lay dead, their armor impervious to most known weapons, penetrated by what appeared to be simple metal harpoons charged with some kind of electrical current. The 5th scout was being dragged away unconscious or dead. And the humans visible now, as they moved through the clearing, showed no signs of celebration or relief. Instead, they immediately began setting new traps, their movements precise, despite the seeming crudeness of their tools. One human female with dark hair, cropped short, looked directly up toward where the invisible dropship hovered, her expression, not of fear, but of grim determination. "What," Salus asked slowly, "did we just witness?" No one on the command deck could answer. Beside her, Orion had gone rigid, all 6 eyes, dilated fully, as if trying to process the incomprehensible emotional data flooding through their bond. "Prepare a full landing force," Salus ordered, her voice tight. "I will lead personally. These humans have just made a grave tactical error." The Vanguard deployed to Earth Prime in overwhelming force, 200 elite soldiers equipped with the finest psycho-reactive armor the Aurelian Empire could produce. They landed in a perfect geometric formation, 10 kilometers from the site of the first ambush, establishing a forward operating base with overlapping psionic shields and automated defenses. Salus paced the command center, reviewing the limited data they had on the human attackers. Primitive weapons, yet somehow engineered to bypass our defenses. Coordinated tactics without any detectable communication signals. And that. She gestured to the neural readouts from the slain scouts. That emotional response. Explain it. Lieutenant Karras hesitated. "Commander, I believe what we witnessed was fear." "Aurelians do not fear," Salus snapped. "With respect, Commander, the evidence suggests otherwise. Something about these humans, their tactics, perhaps triggered responses our kind has not experienced since before the Great Genetic Purification." Orion growled, the star beast's scales rippling with amber and crimson colors of agitation. Salus laid a calming hand on the creature's flank, though she found her own equilibrium harder to maintain than usual. "We will adapt," she declared. "Send out reconnaissance drones first. Full spectrum analysis of the terrain. I want to know everything about this environment before we engage again." The drones returned data that only deepened the mystery. The swamplands surrounding the human settlements were riddled with traps, not just physical snares, but environmental hazards. Sections of bog that appeared solid would collapse under weight. Native flora had been modified to release toxic spores when disturbed. And most disturbing of all, the humans themselves seemed to move through this death maze with reckless abandon, diving into acidic pools and emerging unharmed, darting between venomous plants without concern. "They're using the environment itself as a weapon," observed Karras. "But the neural readings suggest they're as vulnerable to these hazards as we would be." "Then they're acting against self-preservation," Salus concluded, troubled. "The Conquest Council must be informed." She composed a detailed report and transmitted it to Aurelia Prime, but the response was not what she expected. Instead of council or reinforcements, the council demanded results. "Subjugate or eradicate," came High Counselor Vothus's terse reply. "The Harmony cannot tolerate anomalies." 3 days of mounting frustration followed. Every patrol Salus sent out encountered guerrilla resistance. Vanguard walkers were lured into traps of floating mines. Psychic scouts reported sensory overload when attempting to map human thought patterns. And the casualties mounted, not catastrophic, but unprecedented for an Aurelian conquest. "We've identified their leader," Karras reported on the 4th day, displaying holographic imagery captured by a survivor of a recent ambush. "Captain Mara Jensen, according to intercepted communications. They call her Torch for her habit of repurposing our technology into incendiary weapons." The hologram showed a human female, tall for her species, lean, and muscled, with a face marked by old scars, and eyes that burned with fierce intelligence. She wore a patchwork of scavenged armor, including what appeared to be components from an Aurelian scout's gear repurposed and modified. "She was an engineer before the colonization," Karras continued, "specializing in adaptive systems." "And this one," Salus indicated another figure often seen at Jensen's side, an older male with silver-streaked dark hair, carrying equipment of unclear purpose. "Dr. Eli Navarro, xenobiologist. Our intelligence suggests he's been studying the native flora and fauna, particularly the toxic species. The sonic disruptions our forces have encountered, they believe he's responsible. Salus studied the images with growing frustration. They should be primitive, outmatched. Why can't we break them? That night, alone in her quarters with only Orion for company, Salus confronted an uncomfortable truth. The star beast lay curled at the foot of her sleeping platform, its scales shifting through patterns of blue and violet colors of confusion and questioning. "You feel it too," she said quietly, reaching out to stroke the creature's head. Through their bond came emotions she had no name for: admiration, mingled with something that felt uncommonly like fear. Not the blind terror that had overwhelmed the scouts, but something more insidious: doubt. "They're just humans," she told Orion. "Unpredictable, yes. Resourceful, certainly. But they are not invincible." The star beast's eyes blinked in sequence, a gesture that Salus had always interpreted as skepticism. "Tomorrow," she decided, "we change our approach. If they refuse to fight with logic, we will meet their chaos with overwhelming force." The next morning, Salus launched Operation Cleansing Flame. 3 vanguard battalions advanced on the human settlements from different angles, while orbital platforms targeted defensive positions with precise energy strikes. The psychic amplifiers were activated at full capacity, broadcasting waves of disorientation and compliance. For the first hour, it seemed to work. The human resistance fell back, their ambush tactics ineffective against such coordinated force. Salus directed the assault from a command walker, Orion, at her side, feeling a surge of satisfaction as order was restored to the battlefield. Then everything changed. The central communication array flashed with an incoming transmission, not from Aurelian forces, but hijacked from their own systems. On every screen throughout the command center appeared the face of Captain Mara Torch Jensen. "Attention, Aurelian invaders!" She announced, her voice steady, despite the chaos visible behind her. "You've made a grave miscalculation." The camera pulled back to reveal an Aurelian envoy, a junior counselor sent to oversee the integration process, bound, but apparently unharmed. "Your reinforcements will stand down," Jensen continued, "or you will witness human reckoning firsthand. You have 1 hour to withdraw your forces to a minimum distance of 50 kilometers from any settlement." Salus stared at the screen in disbelief. "Absurd! They cannot believe we would retreat based on 1 hostage." But the transmission wasn't finished. Jensen gestured, and the camera shifted to show Dr. Ely Navarro working intently over what appeared to be Aurelian technology, specifically components from a psychic amplifier. "Your greatest strength," Jensen declared, "is now your greatest vulnerability. We've learned how your psychic network functions. Push us further, and we'll create a feedback loop that will fry every enhanced brain in your fleet." The transmission cut off. For several long moments, silence reigned in the command center. "Could they do it?" Salus asked, finally turning to her technical advisors. The chief engineer's expression was grim. "Theoretically, possibly. Our psychic technology is designed for one-way projection. If they've found a way to reverse the signal polarization—" "Unacceptable," Salus cut him off. "Prepare the dreadnought. We will end this now." The Aurelian dreadnought descended from orbit like a falling moon, its massive silhouette blotting out the sun over the region the humans had designated Ember Gorge, a vast canyon where underground lava flows created perpetual heat shimmer and noxious gases vented from cracks in the earth. It was here that Captain Jensen had chosen to make her stand, consolidating human forces in a location where the environmental hazards might help offset the Aurelians' technological advantage. A bold move, Salus thought, but futile. The dreadnought's weapons could vaporize the entire canyon in seconds. "All forces in position," reported Karras. "Psychic shields at maximum." "And the human hostage?" asked Salus. "No change in status. They're keeping him in a shielded structure we cannot penetrate with sensors." Salus nodded. "Begin the assault. Targeted strikes only. I want prisoners for interrogation." The Battle of Ember Gorge would later be recorded in both Aurelian and human histories as a turning point, though neither side could have predicted its outcome. The initial exchanges followed conventional patterns. Aurelian forces advanced with precise, coordinated movements, their psychic attacks creating waves of disorientation among the human defenders. But the humans had prepared. They launched counteroffensives that seemed to defy logic fighters, leaping into superheated vents, only to emerge elsewhere, explosive charges igniting gas pockets to create rolling walls of flame, sonic disruptors, destabilizing the canyon walls to trigger rock slides that somehow affected only Aurelian positions. From her command position aboard the dreadnought, Salis watched with growing frustration as the elegant battle plan disintegrated into chaos. Orion paced beside her, the star beast's scales now pulsing with rapid patterns of crimson and gold agitation, and something that might have been excitement. "They're adapting to our psychic attacks." Karis reported, her usual composure slipping. "Neural feedback is increasing. The amplifiers cannot maintain coherence." In that moment, Salis made a decision that would change the course of the conflict. "I'm going down there," she announced. "Prepare my personal shuttle." "Commander," protested Karis, "the risk is—" "Necessary," Salis finished. "The psychic vanguard leads from the front, always." With Orion at her side, Salis descended into the chaos of Ember Gorge. Her armor, the finest neural responsive battlesuit the Empire could produce, gleamed in the orange glow of the exposed lava flows. The Star Beast's scales had shifted to combat mode, hardening into an armor-like carapace, while maintaining their sensitivity to psychic currents. They had barely touched down when the tide turned decisively. From a ridge above the battlefield, Captain Jensen activated what appeared to be a jury-rigged device cobbled together from stolen Aurelian technology and Earth Prime's native crystals. A pulse of energy, not psychic, but gravitational, erupted from the device, momentarily distorting the very fabric of space around the dreadnought. For one breathless second, nothing happened. Then, with the inexorable grace of a falling titan, the massive Aurelian vessel began to sink toward the canyon floor, directly toward the exposed river of magma that wound through its center. "Impossible," Salis whispered, watching as the pride of the Aurelian fleet, a vessel that had conquered a dozen worlds, succumbed to crude human ingenuity. The dreadnought's emergency systems activated evacuation pods launching in all directions. But its primary systems, including the central psychic dampeners, were failing. As the massive ship settled with agonizing slowness into the magma river, secondary explosions rippled along its hull. "Commander," Karis's voice came through the comm, distorted by interference. "The psychic network is destabilizing. We're receiving reports of neural shock throughout the fleet. We must retreat." But Salis barely heard. Through the swirling smoke and chaos of the battlefield, she had locked eyes with Captain Mara Jensen, who stood atop a rocky outcropping, the gravity device still humming in her hands. Even at this distance, Salis could see the fierce triumph in the human's eyes and something else. Not hatred, not fear, but a wild, reckless determination that both repelled and fascinated her. "Hold position," Salis ordered, her voice steady despite the turmoil in her mind. "I will end this myself." Before Karis could protest, Salis launched herself forward, Orion bounding at her side. They moved as one being, augmented muscles propelling them up the sheer canyon wall toward Jensen's position. The human saw them coming. Of course she did. But instead of fleeing, she smiled and drew what appeared to be a crude projectile weapon. "Come on then, Commander," Jensen called, her voice carrying over the din of battle. "Let's settle this." What followed was a duel unlike any in recorded Aurelian history. Salis, with 10 millennia of genetic engineering and the finest psychic training the Empire could provide, against Mara Jensen, a human engineer with nothing but determination and improvised weapons. They clashed atop the sinking dreadnought, now half submerged in the lava river, its hull glowing red-hot. Jensen's projectile weapon fired not bullets, but compressed darts of frozen native toxins, painful, but not immediately lethal to Aurelian physiology. Salus's neural whip cut through the air with precision, but Jensen moved with unpredictable agility, rolling and leaping between attacks. "Why resist?" Salus demanded, genuinely puzzled, as she narrowly avoided a dart that would have paralyzed her left arm. "The harmony offers peace, order, unity, at the cost of what makes us human." Jensen shot back, ducking under a neural whip strike that left a molten gash in the hull plate behind her. "Our chaos is our strength. Our unpredictability is our freedom." As they fought, Orion circled them, the Star Beast's empathic senses overwhelmed by the intensity of emotions emanating from both combatants. Through their bond, Salus felt something she had never experienced in centuries of conquest, a kind of wild exhilaration, a recognition of an equal if utterly foreign spirit. The duel ended in stalemate. A lucky strike from Jensen's weapon grazed Salus's shoulder, sending a surge of paralytic toxin through her system. At the same moment, Salus's neural whip caught Jensen's leg, delivering a shock that dropped the human to her knees. They faced each other, both wounded, neither defeated, as the dreadnought continued its slow descent into the magma. "Finish it!" Jensen gasped, her face contorted with pain, but her eyes still defiant. Salus raised her whip, then paused. Through Orion, she sensed not fear from the human captain, but a blazing, incomprehensible emotion that the Star Beast could only interpret as hope. Hope in the face of certain defeat. Hope despite overwhelming odds. "You would die for this world?" Salus asked, genuinely curious. Jensen's laugh was ragged. "I would live for it. Dying's just a risk I'm willing to take." Before Salus could respond, the section of hull beneath them groaned ominously. The dreadnought was breaking apart, the integrity of its structure failing as the magma consumed it. "This isn't over," Salus declared, backing away. With a silent command to Orion, she triggered the emergency teleport, embedded in her armor. The last thing she saw before the transport field enveloped them was Jensen's face, not triumphant, but thoughtful, almost regretful. In the aftermath of the Ember Gorge disaster, both sides were forced to reassess. The Aurelian forces had suffered unprecedented casualties, not devastating in pure numbers, but shocking for a civilization accustomed to flawless victory. More concerning were the reports of psychic trauma among the vanguard troops. Something about the human resistance, its chaotic nature perhaps, or its emotional intensity, had created neural feedback that the Aurelian mind was ill-equipped to process. For their part, the humans had sacrificed nearly a third of their fighting force and expended most of their captured Aurelian technology. They could not withstand another full-scale assault. Both sides, recognizing the precariousness of their positions, agreed to a ceasefire. "The Council will not be pleased," Karis observed, as she and Salus reviewed the terms of the temporary treaty. They sat in the command center of the largest remaining Aurelian cruiser, orbiting Earth Prime, at a respectful distance. "The Council is not here," Salus replied. Her shoulder still ached where Jensen's toxin had struck the Aurelian medical technicians, having struggled to fully neutralize the unfamiliar compound. "They did not witness what we faced." "And what did we face, Commander?" Karis asked, her tone carefully neutral. "I've analyzed the battle data a dozen times. By all logic, we should have prevailed." Salus gazed at the holographic display of Earth Prime, rotating slowly before them. "Logic," she said slowly, "may be insufficient when dealing with humans. As part of the ceasefire agreement, cultural exchanges were established. Small delegations from each side would visit the other ostensibly to foster understanding that might lead to a more permanent peace. In reality, both sides recognized it as an opportunity to gather intelligence. Salus volunteered immediately to lead the first Aurelian delegation to a human settlement. "I must understand them," she told Karis. "Their tactics, their thinking, there is something fundamental we are missing." The settlement humans called it New Haven, was a stark contrast to anything on Aurelia Prime. Where Aurelian cities were planned with mathematical precision, New Haven had grown organically buildings of various materials and designs, clustered together in arrangements that prioritized function over form. Streets wound in irregular patterns. Gardens grew in unexpected places. And everywhere, humans moved with that same, unpredictable energy that had so confounded Aurelian tactical systems. Captain Jensen herself met them at the settlement's edge, her injured leg supported by a crude but effective mechanical brace. "Welcome to Earth Prime Commander," she said without mockery or hostility. "We've prepared quarters for your delegation." Orion, padding at Salus's side, drew curious stares from the humans. Children, a concept almost forgotten in Aurelian society, where new citizens emerged fully formed from genetic incubation chambers, pointed and whispered. The star beast's scales rippled with patterns of curiosity and caution. "Your companion is welcome too," Jensen added, noticing Salus's protective stance beside Orion. "Dr. Navarro is especially eager to meet it." The doctor in question appeared moments later, emerging from what appeared to be a research facility, constructed partially from salvaged Aurelian technology. He moved with the careful precision of an older human, but his eyes were bright with intelligence and curiosity. "Fascinating creature," he said, maintaining a respectful distance from Orion. "A symbiotic relationship, I presume. Empathic bonding?" "The star beasts have been our companions for 12,000 years," Salus replied, surprised by the human's perceptiveness. "They enhance our psychic abilities and provide emotional context." "Emotional context," echoed Dr. Navarro, exchanging a meaningful look with Jensen. "That explains much about your society's structure." The tour of New Haven continued, each revelation more puzzling than the last to Salus's Aurelian sensibilities. Humans gathered in communal eating spaces, not out of efficiency, but for pleasure, sharing food cooked over open flames, rather than consuming nutritionally optimized supplements. They engaged in activities with no apparent purpose, creating images on canvas, producing harmonious sounds with primitive instruments, telling stories that bore no relation to historical fact. "What is the function of this?" Salus asked, watching a group of humans move rhythmically to music in an open square. "Dancing," Jensen smiled slightly. "It doesn't have a function, it's just joy." "Joy," repeated Salus, the word feeling foreign in her mouth. Beside her, Orion's scales shimmered with patterns of blue-gold, the star beast's approximation of curiosity. As the day turned to evening, Jensen led Salus to a hillside overlooking the settlement. Below them, lights winked on in the buildings, creating patterns as random and beautiful as stars. "Your society values order above all else," Jensen observed, easing herself down to sit on a fallen log. After a moment's hesitation, Salus joined her, Orion curling at their feet. "Order creates efficiency. Efficiency leads to progress." The words came automatically recited from earliest conditioning, yet they rang hollow in this place. "And what's the point of progress?" Jensen asked, not argumentatively, but with genuine curiosity. The question caught Salus off guard. "To achieve perfection." "Perfect what, though? Perfect order, perfect control." Jensen gestured at the settlement below. "Look at us. We're messy, inefficient, contradictory. We fight among ourselves. We make mistakes. But we learn from them. We adapt. We hope." "Hope," Salus repeated the word, echoing something she had felt during their duel. "For what do you hope?" Jensen considered the question seriously. "For better days. For our children to live in peace. For the chance to explore and discover and create." She looked sideways at Salus. "What do Aurelians hope for?" The question struck Salus with unexpected force. The Aurelian conquest had continued for so long that its purpose had become self-sustaining expansion, for the sake of expansion, order, for the sake of order. When had they last hoped for anything? Before she could formulate a response, sounds of celebration drifted up from the settlement, singing laughter, what appeared to be an impromptu festival, begun for no discernible reason. "Your Lieutenant Rin doesn't trust this ceasefire," Jensen remarked, changing the subject. He watches me like he expects me to pull a knife at any moment. He has reason for caution, Salas acknowledged. As does your Dr. Navarro, who has been systematically scanning every piece of Aurelian technology within range. Jensen's laugh was unexpected, a genuine sound of amusement. Fair point. Trust takes time. Time, agreed Salas, is something we may not have. The Conquest Council will not accept this stalemate indefinitely. Jensen's expression sobered. Neither will some of our people. Lieutenant Wren isn't the only one who sees compromise as weakness. She hesitated, then added, What will you report to your council? It was the question that had troubled Salas throughout the visit. The truthful answer would be heresy by Aurelian standards, that humans possessed a strength the Empire had never encountered, a resilience born, not of genetic engineering or technological superiority, but of something far more primal and powerful. I will report what I have observed, she said finally. And what I have observed is that conventional conquest may not be possible here. And if they order you to try anyway... Salas did not answer immediately. Instead, she reached down to stroke Orion's scales, feeling the complex emotions flowing through their bond: confusion, curiosity, and something else, something new that had emerged during their time on Earth Prime. Something that felt uncomfortably like attachment. I am Aurelian, she said at last. My loyalty is to the harmony. Jensen studied her face for a long moment, then nodded, seeming to hear the unspoken conflict beneath the words. We all serve something larger than ourselves, Commander. The question is whether what we serve deserves our loyalty. They sat in silence as darkness fell completely, the stars emerging overhead, the same stars that looked down on Aurelia Prime, now seeming somehow different when viewed from this chaotic, vibrant world. Over the next week, Salas immersed herself in human culture, determined to understand the source of their strength. She observed their council meetings where representatives argued passionately, sometimes changing positions in response to new information, a concept unheard of in the Conquest Council's rigid hierarchy. She watched children at play their games, following rules that seemed to shift moment by moment. She witnessed disputes resolved not through psychic compliance, but through compromise and occasionally simple acceptance of differences. Most fascinating of all was their relationship with unpredictability itself. Where Aurelians sought to eliminate variables, humans embraced them. They created art based on random elements. They told jokes whose humor depended on unexpected conclusions. They formed relationships based not on optimal genetic compatibility, but on intangible emotional connections. Your species thrives on chaos, she remarked to Dr. Navarro as they toured his laboratory, where he was studying the interaction between native flora and Aurelian bioengineering. Not chaos, he corrected gently. Possibility. We see uncertainty not as a threat, but as potential. Potential for disaster, Salas pointed out. Or for discovery. The doctor gestured to a specimen, under analysis a native plant, that had begun incorporating elements of Aurelian biochemistry, creating a hybrid with surprising properties. Without uncertainty, without change, there can be no growth. The concept resonated with something Salas had been feeling since arriving on Earth Prime, a sense that the perfect order of Aurelian society came at a cost she had never before recognized. Through Orion, whose empathic abilities had expanded in the emotionally rich environment of the human settlement, she felt the vibrancy of this world in ways her Aurelian conditioning had never prepared her for. And she was not alone. The other members of her delegation reported similar experiences, confusion giving way to curiosity, then to a reluctant admiration. One young Vanguard officer, after participating in a human music ritual, confessed to feeling emotions he could not categorize within the Aurelian spectrum. They're changing us, Karis warned during a private communication. The council must be informed. But when Salas transmitted her report to Aurelia Prime, the response was swift and unequivocal. Humans were classified as a Class X anomaly, a designation reserved for species too dangerous or unpredictable to assimilate into the harmony. Two options were presented: Quarantine the Triad Beta system, indefinitely isolating the human infection, or eliminate the colony entirely through orbital bombardment. The Council fears them, Salis realized, reading between the lines of the formal directive. Not for their technology or their tactics, but for their ideas. The directive came with a time frame, 30 standard days, to withdraw Aurelian forces from the system and establish a quarantine perimeter. After that, should quarantine prove insufficient, the eradication fleet would be dispatched. Salis faced a decision that would challenge the very core of her Aurelian identity. Duty demanded she follow the Council's orders without question. Logic suggested that humanity's unpredictable nature indeed posed a threat to the carefully ordered harmony of the Empire. But something else, something she had absorbed during her time among humans, pushed her toward a different path. She found Captain Jensen at the same hillside where they had spoken before watching the sunrise, paint the sky in colors no Aurelian artist would have combined. The Council has made its decision, Salis announced without preamble. Earth Prime is to be quarantined. No ships in or out. If that proves insufficient. She let the implication hang in the air. Jensen nodded slowly, unsurprised. And you're here to enforce this quarantine? I am here, Salis said carefully, to inform you of it. There's a difference, Jensen observed, studying Salis's face. What are you not saying, Commander? Salis hesitated, then made a decision that would change not only her future, but potentially that of two civilizations. The Aurelian harmony has existed for 50,000 years. In that time we have conquered 1,000 worlds, assimilated countless species. Never once have we questioned our right to do so. Until now, Jensen supplied. Until now, agreed Salis. Your people have shown me something I did not know existed, a strength born not of order, but of hope. Of unpredictable, irrational hope in the face of overwhelming odds. Jensen's expression remained neutral, though her eyes betrayed a flicker of that very hope. And what will you do with this revelation, Commander? In answer, Salis removed the insignia of the Psychic Vanguard from her uniform and held it out to Jensen. I am resigning my commission. I cannot in good conscience enforce a quarantine I believe to be unjust, or worse, participate in what might follow. Jensen stared at the insignia, then back at Salis' genuine shock, replacing her usual composure. You understand what this means. You can never return to Aurelia Prime. I understand. Salis glanced down at Orion, who pressed against her leg scales, shimmering with patterns of gold and azure approval. But perhaps I can serve as a bridge between our peoples. The Council fears what it does not understand. If I can help them understand humans, your strengths, your values, perhaps there is a path forward that does not lead to isolation or conflict. A bridge, repeated Jensen, slowly taking the offered insignia. It won't be easy. Many of my people will never trust an Aurelian former commander or not. And many Aurelians will consider me a traitor, Salis acknowledged. But the alternative is unacceptable. Two civilizations that could learn from each other instead, locked in eternal enmity, or worse. For a long moment, Jensen studied her, searching for deception or uncertainty. Finding none, she extended her hand, a human gesture of agreement that Salis had learned during her time in the settlement. Well then, former Commander Jensen said, a hint of her usual wry humor returning, Welcome to humanity's chaotic embrace. I hope you don't come to regret it. Salis took the offered hand, feeling the strange warmth of human contact, so different from the cool efficiency of Aurelian interaction. Regret, she replied, is an emotion I am only beginning to understand, along with hope. 3 months later, Salis stood on the same ridge, Orion at her side, watching a new day dawn over Earth Prime. Beside her stood not just Captain Jensen, but representatives from both human and Aurelian delegations, an unprecedented gathering made possible by small, determined steps toward understanding. Not all had embraced the path of cooperation. Lieutenant Rin and his supporters maintained a wary distance, convinced that any alliance with Aurelians would eventually lead to subjugation. On the Aurelian side, High Counselor Vothus had declared Salus a defector and maintained that quarantine was the only safe approach to the human problem. But others had seen the potential in a different way forward. Charis, to Salus's surprise, had petitioned to remain on Earth Prime as a cultural liaison. Dr. Navarro had established a joint research initiative studying the synergy between human adaptability and Aurelian biotechnology. And most promising of all, a small but growing faction within the council itself had begun questioning the millennia-old policy of conquest above all else. "The first joint expedition leaves tomorrow," Jensen remarked, watching, as human and Aurelian technicians made final preparations on a hybrid vessel in the valley, below a ship that combined Aurelian psychic technology with human improvisation. Uncharted space beyond the reach of the Council or Earth government. A fresh start. "And a test," added Salus. "If we can explore together rather than conquer, perhaps others will see the value in cooperation." Jensen smiled slightly. "Always the optimist now, aren't you? What happened to the ruthless commander I dueled at Ember Gorge?" "She learned to hope," Salus said simply. Through her bond with Orion, she felt the complex tapestry of emotions that now colored her perception of the world. Not just the clean, ordered patterns of Aurelian thought, but the vibrant chaos of human feeling, fear and courage, doubt and conviction, loss and possibility. As the sun cleared the horizon, painting the sky in colors no Aurelian would have deemed harmonious, yet beautiful nonetheless, Salus felt something she had never experienced in centuries of conquest, the uncertain, yet exhilarating sense of standing at the beginning of something new. Not perfect, not ordered, but alive with potential. Humans had taught her their greatest weapon, and it was neither technology nor tactics. It was unpredictable hope, the irrational, magnificent belief that tomorrow could be better than today. And for the first time in her long life, Salus found herself embracing uncertainty, not as an enemy to be conquered, but as a friend to be welcomed. The universe had never made Aurelians afraid until they met humans. And in that fear, they had discovered courage. In chaos, they had found harmony. In unpredictability, they had found hope.